Hello, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com, or, of course, if you are watching on our fast-growing YouTube channel on the race for 10,000 subscribers. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me from Dickey's Arena in Fort Worth, Texas, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ just saw Carolina pick up the 95-63 win over Marquette in the first round, 8 seed versus 9 seed in this one, and it was a game in which Carolina really dominated the whole way, advancing to play Baylor on Saturday after the win, top seed Baylor in that after Baylor's 85-49 win over Norfolk State in the opening round. Before we dive into it, though, AJ, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor on this NIL FanBox. Remember, guys, for as little as $9.95 a month, UNC fans can now receive authentic autographed memorabilia from all your favorite UNC men's and women's basketball players delivered right to your door. And in return, players earn money from their name, image, and likeness. Now, guys, if you want to sign up, click the link in the description below. Make sure you use the promo code HEELS22 to save 10% on that. Like I said, link to sign up is in the description below. Jump on it fast, guys. Really awesome opportunity and a fantastic sponsorship we're really excited about. AJ, let's dive into this game, though. I know
real quick. Also, they use the Heels 22 code that puts them into the Tar Heel fan box. It's not just NIL; it's Tar Heel NIL. That means they are specifically in the Canal of Carolina stuff. So if they want to make sure that that's all they ever get, and that's the lane they travel in, they got to use Heels 22 promo code.
Yep, and hit that link below. That'll take you right to the North Carolina sign up as well, where you can jump right into that. But AJ, first thing I want to hit on, Carolina opened the game up, that 22 run in the first half. I know it was tight. The first, they didn't have a first TV timeout to like the 13-minute mark or something like that. Crazy back and forth game, really no fouls in the beginning. Both teams didn't start shooting the ball particularly well. That was a trend that kind of was consistent throughout the game for Marquette, not really the case for the Tar Heels, because they went on that big 20-2 run in the first half. Caleb and Brady, massive. Caleb, 21 points in the first half for him. That was when the game was over, really, after that one in hindsight. Marquette never able to crawl back into it in the second half. We'll talk about that here in a second. But that 20-2 run, was the game for the Tar Heels in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it was 8-7 Marquette, and I thought Carolina had great skip in their step early, just weren't making shots. Maybe they're a little overamped, if you will. Both teams perhaps were, but Carolina was 4 for its first 17. And then boom, 20-2 run. They got, it wasn't just Caleb hitting threes. You know, Brady had 3 free throws. He's fouled on a 3-pointer. Armando hit a couple free throws. Brady hit a 3. You know, there was a lot of wealth to go around. Caleb had a 3 in that run, but 20-2, and you could absolutely see Marquette's disposition and body language change, and it never, ever recovered. I asked all 3 guys in the press conference if they thought that was the case. They didn't really go into that. They just kind of talked about why they got the 20-2 run, but Leaky kind of said after the game, we got Leaky and RJ outside the locker room, and Leaky kind of said, yeah, we kind of put our foot on their throat. RJ said, yeah, we kind of put our foot on their throat. And I think that they sensed, maybe more than sensed, they knew that they were almost, I don't want to say they were toying with them, because you don't toy with teams in the NCAA tournament, but Carolina had the upper hand. They had the psychological upper hand in the midst of that run. And I think maybe they may have had a slight one before that run, because I think that they surprised Marquette with their quickness early. They surprised Marquette with their ability to move the ball and how they moved without the ball to get open so they could move the ball. I thought that they had a tremendous alertness and awareness early, and I think that surprised Marquette. I think Marquette looked at them and said, oh, they're bigger, and they're as quicker than we are. And they have that spring in their step. And I know Armando was missing some early shots, but he was getting the shots. Yeah. So I think Carolina played really well up to that point. The ball just didn't fall through. And what happened is the ball just started falling through. And that's when the spirit, the will of Marquette was taken out. You saw 3 technical fouls by Marquette the first 16.5 minutes of the game. One was shotgun. I don't know if the camera's on CB or what was this, Turner or CB? I don't know who the hell was showing it.
TBS.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know. My wife wanted to know, and I told her I thought it was TBS, but I don't know. I was right behind Carolina's bench too, right behind Hubert. I was able to hear pretty much everything, and I thought it was interesting that when it was after a non-travel call on Armando, Shaka was going out to midcourt, and you can hear, you know, the blank bombs, you know, firing out of his mouth. And then he got teed up. As one guy sitting next to me said, it wasn't because the first one, maybe not because the second one, but it was the third one that got him. And I think that was sort of indicative of where that team was. They were shell-shocked that they got punched,
yeah,
and they got punched again. If you remember Mike Tyson fights back in the 90s when people would pay big bucks and there'd be Tyson parties and you'd all be ready to roll at about 10:15 when Tyson comes out in the ring, and the fight was over by 10:17. 10:16, 10:17. This was kind of like that. But Carolina just kept punching them with the blows. They weren't just blows to the head. They were body blows. They were all kinds of things. This was as impressive as the game at Duke. You kind of have to isolate and put over here, as we often talk about, because those games always don't exemplify what a team is all about. But I do think what we saw today, we saw a lot of at Duke. We saw a lot of against Virginia. We've seen more of this stuff in the last, since the first Duke game than we had any bunch of period of time before that. And I actually asked Leaky after the game. I know we're kind of going off against a 22 run here, just diving into other things, but I asked Leaky after the game about the toughness that Hubert's been talking about, and if it was born after that first Duke game, because they didn't punch back. And he was so open about it. And not only they punch back now, but they've been the ones that have been coming out punching more and more and more. We said this team was growing, Jacob. We kept telling people, even in the midst of narrow wins over bad teams, we said that the armor was getting thicker and thicker. And I think you saw today an example of thick armor and a high level of finesse and a big time skip in their step, and that produced this victory.
Yeah, everything looks better when the ball goes in the basket, to quote Roy Williams.
But they did 1,000 things. Yeah, but they did 1,000 things. We're going to talk about. They did 1,000 things to lead up to the ball going in the basket, and in addition to the ball going. When they clobbered NC State at home, that was more a matter of the ball just going through the basket.
Yeah,
this was a matter of them whipping Marquette in every conceivable fashion of the game.
Yeah, no, 100%. We'll dive into that a little bit later. To real quickly before we dive onto this, hit on the second thing I want to talk about. I'm going to run through some stats real quick. Brady Manick, big game for him, led the way for the Tar Heels. Season high 28 points, 11 rebounds. Kind of a homecoming game from him. Had a lot of family in attendance. His hometown near Oklahoma City is only about 3 hours away. Caleb Love, 23 points. 21 of those came in the first half. So relatively quiet second half for Caleb Love, but he was big time in the first half. And let's be honest, guys, that game was over at halftime in hindsight. Armando Bacot,
sure was.
17 points. Yeah, before that, 17 points, 10 boards, 26 double-double of the season. Also set a school record, Carolina record, for rebounds in a single season today as well. Did it pretty early on. Is that something he hit on in his press conference? Puff Johnson, 11 points. RJ Davis only had 4 points, but 12 assists for RJ Davis. Big time, spreading that ball around today for Carolina. But real quickly, we'll hit on the second half. I know the first half was really what kind of catapulted Carolina into a comfortable position at halftime, and they were able to kind of coast in the second half. But Carolina, eventually built that 35-point lead over Marquette, kept their foot on the gas, kept their foot on their neck of Marquette. It was, like you mentioned in the first half, it was a rattled Marquette team. It was a shell-shocked Marquette team. And in a lot of ways, it looked like a Marquette team that knew it was beat before the halftime whistle even blew. Yeah. So you can look at that in one way, but you have to give credit to Carolina as well for how they were able to keep up their second half performance, shooting 55% in the second half as well.
Yeah, they were phenomenal. And some people get critical when a team like Carolina's had huge first half leads and they don't beat a team by whatever the margin was at some point. And they came close to doing that here. This was, by the way, their largest margin of victory in NCAA tournament games since they scored. I think it may be since let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
Outside of when they're a top seed, okay? When they're a top seed, they pound people. But when they actually play a single-digit seed, I think this is their largest margin of victory since they beat Rhode Island in the second round in 1993. They won the national title that year. Tonight, they had 29 assists. Steve said that's the most assists in an NCAA tournament game since I believe it was 89 when they scored 123 points against that run-and-gun Luella Marymount club when Paul Westhead was the head coach there. So they had everything going for them, and it kept going in the second half. They were getting dunks in the second half. They were threes in the first half. They were getting all kinds of dunks. And I think the signature moment of the second half that told me, okay, they can pretty much do what they want, and they are doing what they want, and they're spreading it around. And I asked Leaky about this, and he laughed. The fast break that Brady Manick led, and he fed it to Leaky for a basket. And that was just sort of the exclamation mark on what was happening in the building here today. And I think it's very beneficial for this team to have continued what it was doing in the first half. for a while in the second half, especially offensively, because if the concentration drops, sometimes you'll see it on defense for sure. But if you really see it on offense, that means the concentration really dropped. Concentration didn't really drop, and Marquette was making some buckets. I don't think Carolina was going to get their grill as much in the second half, and some more guys played as well. But the offense was really smooth and efficient. They kept clicking in the second half. So if you want to continue to look for signs of growth, if you want to look for examples that this team is better now than it was 6 weeks ago, I think that's an example. They were really, if the second half was the only half of the game, I would say that this was a really good basketball team tonight. If you combine both halves, I would say that in many respects, this was their best performance of the year. Marquette isn't Duke, and it wasn't in Cameron Indoor, and it wasn't on that particular night. And that's a game, again, let's just kind of put it over on the side. But this was as high level of basketball by this team as that one was, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. I actually put a tweet out after, kind of towards the end of the game, is this the best we've seen Carolina play this season? And I haven't really looked at my replies yet, so I had a bunch. I'll have to go look and see what people are saying, but it's definitely up there. I know you can't really make any argument about that. AJ, this last thing I want to hit on real quick. Carolina dominated the glass. That was something we hit on in the preview podcast coming into it as we looked ahead to the matchup. This is a Marquette team that I believe was second to last in the Big East in rebounding. Just not a very good rebounding team coming into this. It's not really how they play. It's not really their bread and butter. And on the reverse side, Carolina leading the ACC in rebounds this season. So it was a really good Carolina rebounding team. Out-rebounded Marquette 52-37, and this one was 32-16 at the half as well. Another big reason Carolina was able to win so comfortably.
Yeah, and the reason I wanted to isolate this, and I am in our five takeaways as well, is because sometimes when you're supposed to dominate a team in a particular category and you have a couple of days to prepare for it, and what Armando said yesterday when he said that they're not a very good rebounding team, sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes one of the hardest things to do is do what you're supposed to do. And we've seen this club this year have games against teams that it should out-rebound by 12 to 15, and it doesn't. And it's neck and neck at rebounds. But Carolina was just dominating the glass from the outset. And that was one of the indicators that told me, okay, they got everything. And in order to rebound, you have to have the lunch pail mentality. And I thought it was interesting that Hubert Davis this week really emphasized toughness. And he was talking about fights and saying, that there's three kinds of big people out there: the ones that don't want to fight, the ones that will fight, and the ones that are looking for a fight. He said, we want to look for a fight. I think that is a play on what Leakey and I talked about tonight, going back to the first Duke game when he said we didn't get punched. You don't want to worry about having to punch back. Be the one who punches first. Be the one who punches first, put them on their heels. And I think a big way of doing that is a team that you're supposed to out-rebound. They're supposed to out-rebound considerably. When you just let them know right away, you guys aren't getting boards. You're not getting these. Carolina had 21 second chance points in the first half. That is their way of telling Marquette, you got no business on the floor with us today. And so I think that rebounding is really important because it signifies so many other things. And there were a lot of things. And honestly, I could do 15 takeaways. You and I could do 15 things in this podcast about all the things they did well. There was nothing they didn't do well. They even held their composure. There was that one incident with Caleb, and Caleb's a guy that will certainly respond to a fight. I would imagine, Absolutely. That's not the kind of guy you want to tick off somewhere, because he's not going to back down. He's not going to walk away and say, well, I'm not going to handle that guy. I think Caleb's the kind of guy that will probably clock you. And there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of dudes that are like that. A lot of highly successful. I love that kind of stuff. Yeah. A lot of highly competitive dudes. And that was going on out there. And I thought it was impressive. Remember I said I was sitting right behind the bench, how a bunch of his teammates ran to him. And they were telling him, keep your head. Guys were yelling from the bench, keep your head. Hubert had a couple of words, and Caleb's eyes were locked right on Hubert's when he was talking to him. When he came, you remember the incident that I'm talking about? Yeah, absolutely. And when he came over to the bench, and his eyes were locked right on Hubert when he was telling him that. This is a connected basketball team. For the people that have been highly critical of Hubert at times during the course of the year, and you and I shouted from the mountaintops, process. And I still think the process for Hubert Davis is going to be through this season, into the offseason, into next season, into a third season, basically. That will be his process. But I think part of the process that people were concerned about is he losing the kids because of what happened when they went to Coral Gables and Winston-Salem that week, and a week and a half later they get pounded by Duke at home. Well, today I had firsthand up close evidence, not that I doubted it anyway, that these kids are totally tuned in with what he saw. I saw RJ and Caleb while dribbling, and not way that a lot of guards will slow down and just kind of look over at the coach and say, okay, what am I supposed to do now? They just instinctively kind of glance over. And there were a couple times when Caleb was doing something else and he saw what Hubert was signaling, he immediately shifted into whatever Hubert wanted. They shifted into the horns a couple of times after they were almost about to start a different offensive set or just do freelance, and they just went right into it. And I think that going back to the rebounding, this to me is an example of what that is. Because I asked RJ after the game about Hubert talking about the toughness and looking for a fight. And I said, as part of fighting, looking for a fight, enforcing your will from an execution standpoint. It's not just being burly. It's not just riding a guy out in a box out. It's not just giving a cut or a hip through the lane or something like that. It's not just getting in their jock and denying and not letting them get an entry pass or something on the wing. It's about just executing what you do. And that's what they did tonight. And RJ said, yes, absolutely. You be physical, you be tough, you don't back down, and you enforce your will from an execution standpoint. That is being the one that throws the first punch. And they threw they were throwing haymakers all night.
Yeah, they were impressive performance from start to finish from Carolina. I thought really, really impressive game from the Tar Heels in their opening round matchup in the NCAA tournament. 95-63 win over Marquette, improving to 25-9 on the season. And like I said earlier, advancing to play number 1 seed Baylor in Dickies Arena on Saturday. That's going to do it for us, though. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Again, guys, make sure you check out NIL FanBox. Check us out at nilfanbox.com/North Carolina. Link to that will be in the description. Use the promo code HEELS22 to save 10% when you sign up. Go take advantage, guys. You get delivered memorabilia signed by Carolina athletes sent right to your front door. Doesn't get any cooler than that, in my opinion. Before we run, AJ, hell of a backdrop. Got to give you a compliment about that real quick.
Yeah, I'm at the dais. See, I'm actually at the press conference dais.
It almost looks fake. That's how good it is.
Well, and something just fell too, so probably not. But yeah, I was looking for a spot, and the San Diego State game was just starting. It's noisy out there, so I came in here and asked the guy that runs the press conference. I said, "Hey, this is what I need to do. Do you have any suggestions for me?" He said, "You need a quiet room." And I said, "Well, yeah, sure." I said, "How about up here? This is a big quiet room right now." And he said, "Right up here." I said, "Yeah, right here on the dais." He said, "Sure." So I've got my laptop on a stack of San Diego State press guides, like media pack or info packets like that big. So I hate when people look down on video when they do FaceTime and Zoom. So no one wants to look up my nose. It's big enough as it is. So I figure if I can go straight on, I can minimize the distraction that is my noggin. So
I love it, man. That's a hell of a backdrop right there. Guys,
here's the NCAA microphone right here.
Oh, that's official right there. Hey guys, if you like AJ's backdrop and you like the win today, go ahead and give this video a like and make sure you subscribe if you're not already. We're trying to hit 10,000 for the end of basketball season. So if the Carolina keeps winning, the longer we'll have to hit that. Again, guys, check out TarIllustrated.com as well. Link in the description below for all your post-game coverage from today's game and leading up to the Baylor game on Saturday. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
Thanks.